It's New Year's Eve, which means exactly one thing. It's time to count down my favourite games of the last 12 months. This year is a slightly awkward one for me, as I didn't get round to playing nearly as many new releases as I probably would have liked. There are plenty of reasons for this that I won't be getting into, but most of my gaming time has been spent playing catch-up on older games. It's been a great time, but it does make lists like this harder to put together. That said, there are 10 games that I'm happy to hold up as the best of the year. Some are last-minute additions, so perhaps my feelings towards them will change as time goes on, but for now, I have had a great time with all 10 of these games. As always, this is my personal list, so I will not abide by any "where the hell is my favourite" complaints, as any game that's missing is probably one I haven't played or have no real interest in playing, or I did play it and it didn't click with me enough to include it. Those are all valid reasons. So with that out of the way, it's time to call action on the first game. Every year at Halloween, I usually try and pick up a small indie horror game from that year. This year, that game was Dead Take, a walking sim horror game that exudes a ton of atmosphere and tells a layered story with a ton of twists and turns. You are an actor who's been invited to a party hosted by a big Hollywood director. You know the type, one of those cult of personality auteurs who's all ego but somehow still manages to make great movies. This is a major part of the horror as we see what actors do to try and win his favour and advance their career, who they screw over and how desperate they become. It's a story about obsession, the dark depths of the creative industries, and how disconnected from reality Hollywood can make people. It's got a fantastic atmosphere as you wind your way around a mansion full of grotesque imagery and rooms full of secrets. There's some excellent puzzle design too, especially the central mechanic of attempting to splice together audition clips that you dig up on flash drives around the house. These clips are enhanced with excellent performances from a cast of beloved video game actors including Ben Starr, Neil Newbon, Laura Bailey, Alana Pierce, and a special appearance from Sam Lake. Dead Take is a short experience, but it's so dripping with atmosphere that I would recommend it to any fans of great horror narratives. I'd already bought this game when it was in early access, but at the time it felt like an extended demo, especially when I reached a certain level of progress and the game was like, well, you've covered everything we have. I'd largely forgotten about News Terror until I got a notification that the full release came out this year, and it's not only still got everything I loved about the early access version, it's now expanded and made better. You're a newspaper publisher in the early 20th century trying to outmaneuver two major publishers in New York City, while also dealing with pressure from the mayor, the mob, high society, and the military. It's probably one of the more unique management sims I've ever played, with the focus less on how much money you've spent on your office, and more on what you're publishing on a week-by-week basis, and how well you're appeasing those various different factions. Honestly, the publishing part of this became kind of an obsession for me. Matching story types net you points, but I was always determined to have something exciting as the front page lead story, tried to keep stories on a theme, sports always go on the back page, no exceptions, also no ads on the front page so as to not ruin the aesthetic. In other words, my own internal editor constantly kicks into gear while playing this game, and it always ends up being incredibly challenging, and when I can't get the newspaper just right, it's really frustrating and I just have to do it again. Look, the only problem with this game is how easy it is to lose hours to it. I have a complicated relationship with Assassin's Creed. The second game is easily one of my favourite games of all time, but the formula did get stale with each successive entry. Even with the shift to more of an action RPG style, the series has just kind of become very bloated and huge and takes way too long to finish a game, and that's why I never played Valhalla and have no intention to. It's just the usual bloated open world Ubisoft problems, basically. Shadows isn't a huge overhaul, and some of the generic problems of the series do persist, but I did hugely enjoy the game all the same this year. A big part of it was Naoe, the game's main protagonist, who is proof that Assassin's Creed should have done a ninja in feudal Japan a long time ago. Her abilities fit so well into the building climbing and stealth mechanics that the series is built around that it clearly should have been done much earlier. She has an extremely satisfying set of abilities, including a grappling hook which adds so much to the parkour you don't even know, as well as expected ninja staples like smoke bombs, and because she's a ninja they've put a lot of effort into the stealth, and it feels probably the best the series has ever had. Yasuke is also an interesting addition, not in terms of gameplay of course, as his big hitter samurai gameplay feels deeply at odds with what I expect from the series, but his story does add an interesting dimension to things. While Naoe's motivations are fairly bog standard righteous personal vengeance, Yasuke operates from the position of honouring the man who freed him from slavery. Having the contrasting worldviews of these two characters made the story much more interesting than it could have been if it was just Naoe. Also, the world is gorgeous, with a wide variety of Japanese landscapes depicted, and the seasonal mechanic adds a lot to the vibe. Just good stuff all round. Basically, Assassin's Creed remains a solid comfort food AAA series, and Shadows is honestly one of the better entries that I've played in recent years. Don't Nod simply can't leave Life is Strange behind, as Lost Records is yet another return to the introspective young adults going through a vaguely supernatural crisis narrative adventure style that put them on the map. This time, there's a touch of Stephen King's It as a group of friends reunite in 2022 to discuss the events of a summer in 1995 where they bonded and then agreed to never speak again due to the events that happened. The game splits between these two time periods as we explore the story of four misfit teens who found a cabin in the woods in 1995, formed a band, and also encountered something extremely weird that had dark ramifications for all of them. It's a slower narrative than some of Don't Nod's previous works, and much of the game's runtime is basically just hanging out, enjoying some hazy retro vibes and bonding with the girls as they bond with each other. It makes the twists and revelations hit that much harder as you've come to love all four of them, and it's a real shock to the system when those elements arrive. I'm not going to spoil anything, of course, but trust me, this story takes some real turns. But it's that hanging out that I mostly loved about this. Just the throwback to being an awkward teen, with the slow burn of the story and just vibes. With the marginally terrible riot girl band that the girls form, and Swan's insistence on viewing the world through the lens of a VHS camcorder, which, of course, you can control and record stuff with yourself. This is the 90s viewed through the most nostalgic eye you could imagine. There are some fantastic performances across the board to help sell the atmosphere, and it's all just a really great experience. It's a solid, nostalgic character piece, undercut with an anxious dread, and I loved every minute of it. If there is one game that I feel has been tragically overlooked this year by basically every place handing out Game of the Year accolades, it's Promise Mascot Agency. It is easily one of the most interesting games I have played this year, and to see it never brought up in any end of year conversations makes me sad, so allow me to introduce it to you. You are a disgraced Yakuza grunt, punished for a deal gone wrong by being banished to the cursed town of Kasomachi, where Yakuza men are fated to die. You are tasked with running an agency that handles mascots, only in this world these mascots are sentient beings, not people in costume. You must drive around the town in your K-truck, recruiting every weird little guy you can, while sending them on jobs and saving them from disasters ranging from getting stuck in a door to being haunted by the vengeful spirits of their ancestors. You know, normal stuff. But it goes bigger than that. Outside of the agency, there is a corrupt mayor, a potential conspiracy and cover-up involving the Yakuza's operations in the town, and a general commentary on the decline of small rural towns. Promise Mascot Agency handles all this with a combination of visual novel storytelling, open world driving, and management mechanics. I cannot describe the experience of playing this game without it sounding unhinged, which is appropriate considering most of its cast, but that's also a major part of the charm. It's weird, it's cozy in unexpected ways, and it's a surprisingly heartfelt story about building a community. Also, the cast includes actual Yakuza star Takuya Kuroda, former Sony president Shuei Yoshida, and Swery for some reason. All of this is why this game really needed to be more talked about. Just like in 2021, where I was gifted a PS5 at Christmas and snuck Rift Apart into my end of year list, this year I somehow also ended up in possession of a Switch 2 in a similar manner, and Mario Kart World has made a last minute bid for one of my games of the year. Obviously, it's Mario Kart and everyone loves it, but I'm weirdly into this one in a way that Mario Kart 8 never fully managed to achieve with me. Maybe it's the fact that many of the races in this one feel a lot more challenging than in 8, where applying any use of drifting seemed to give me comfortable leads in 99% of single player races. And now I get victory snatched out from me from a sneaky Wario at the last second that just pushes me to figure out the game's wide range of movement techs to get better times, and those movement techs are incredibly fun. You can ride walls, it's really fun, and rail grinding and all that stuff, it's just really cool. The internet also seems to hate the point-to-point nature of the races here, and here's me thinking it's probably one of the best things to ever happen to the series. Then again, I have previously expressed a love for rally racing, so maybe I'm a little biased on this, I guess. I actually love the open world, mostly for the hidden challenges, although I do feel it would be more complete if the races were accessible from within the open world itself. Basically just go full Forza Horizon with it is what I'm saying. And then, oh god, there is the soundtrack. It's Nintendo, you did not need to hand the entire 40 years of Mario music to a bunch of top-notch musicians to jam all over, and yet, that is exactly what you did for 200 plus tracks. It's outstanding stuff. Also, there's a vehicle named Lil Dumpy. I feel you all need to be made aware of that. I am insistent that Silent Hill is a series with more misses than hits. Yes, Silent Hill 2 is one of the greatest games ever made, and the two games either side of it are also stellar in their own unique ways. But from 4's trundling pace and endless repetition to a series of mid-2000s flops that seem to miss the point of the series entirely, I kind of had given up hope of the series ever being good again. The wide social media mockery of Ascension and then the absolutely miserable time I had trying out the short message meant I didn't have much hope that the current attempted revival of the series was going to be much better. So colour me surprised that two of the best horror experiences I've had this year have been Silent Hill games. The Silent Hill 2 remake, which I was wary of, got added to PlayStation Plus in time for Halloween, and they nailed it. And of course, the actual new game released this year, Silent Hill F. Apparently, the way to make the series good again was either redo the actual good games, or hand the game to an acclaimed visual novel writer who's going to throw out most of the series conventions and do what he feels like. Silent Hill F isn't even set in the titular town, nor is it even in the same country. We are no longer in a haunted American small town. It is a Japanese horror game all the way through, relying heavily on ancient spirits, vague symbolism, and criticisms of social attitudes in the country during the 1960s. Some of which persist to this day. And yet, it somehow still works as a Silent Hill game. It takes the concept of Silent Hill and imagines it as a curse, one that could happen anywhere, in any small town. Small towns are creepy places when you really think about it, so exploring it through the lens of a different culture to what we're used to, it's neat. Silent Hill F is some classic survival horror, flitting between a foggy town and a mysterious shrine bathed in darkness, where a girl has to survive against monsters and the worst of Japanese society of the time. Hanako struggles with her identity as a tomboy in a world where that's the greatest crime a girl can commit, help ground a story that goes into some weird, horrifying places. I'm still not entirely sure what happened in this game, but for once, I actually do want to do multiple playthroughs so I can find the answers. Puzzle design, confusing in the best way possible. Combat, janky in exactly the way that Silent Hill should be. Atmosphere, perfect, to the point where I want to slap whoever came up with the scarecrow enemies. I legitimately hate you. Silent Hill is back, in J-horror form, and we're all better for it.
You should be sitting up straight, but without stiffness, and should feel comfortable. Don't ever let yourself become tense. Now let's type some more on the home row key. Ready?
For For most of the latter half of 2025, I have been eagerly awaiting a silly punk rock rhythm game where music is illegal and you do crimes. In the last month of 2025, my mind has been occupied with little else aside from the scrappy yet triumphant punk rock rhythm game where music is illegal and you do crimes. Unbeatable is a rhythm action game based around a fictional band living in a totalitarian regime where their mere existence is a felony. Music has been outlawed, but despite that, these four weirdo misfits just want to make some ferocious garage rock. And considering how good the soundtrack here is, I'm certainly not going to stop them. But aside from the ability to rip your way through a collection of incredibly excellent music to rack up some high scores Guitar Hero style, this is one of the more surprising games from a narrative standpoint I've encountered this year. I came into it expecting a fun, goofy story about punks taking down the man and came away reflecting on why we create and how we must value the relationships we've built with those around us. Of course, it is still a goofy punk rock story, exactly the kind of thing I love. You play as Beat, a slacker with a guitar who gets roped into a rebellion against an oppressive regime that would probably arrest birds for singing if they could. You hang out with two other rebellious young adults and a girl who's like 5 or whatever, living in a shack, composing music by the shore, visiting batting cages and getting whacked in the face because the machine's like throwing weird rhythms at you, and getting a part-time job as a bartender where the rhythm of your shaking determines how good your cocktails are. It also has the most Jet Set Radio coded section this side of Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, and I'm obviously here for that. Did I mention how good the music is? It's so good. At the time of making this section, the official soundtrack isn't out yet, and that's the greatest crime known to humanity. I have to wait until this video is out. My life is so hard. I love Unbeatable, obviously. If you like rhythm games or punk aesthetics, you need to play this. I need everyone to play this.
Using proper rhythm, wiggle your fingers and jam the keys. A quick snap of the finger, and with practice, that's all there is to it.
I never played It Takes Two, despite its vast critical acclaim. I wanted to, since I thought it looked cool, but despite me and my usual co-op partner mentioning it here and there, we simply never got round to it, because we're adults and coordinating anything as an adult is pain. But this year, I was assigned Hazelight's follow-up, Split Fiction, as a review game, outside the channel, obviously. With a deadline in sight, it became somewhat easier to get sessions organised with my bestie, and I'm so glad that I did, because Split Fiction is excellent. Look, here's my review, and it's big old 9 out of 10. Split Fiction is director Joseph Fares, not so subtly slapping the generative AI industry around the face, as its story about a corporation stealing creative works for the purpose of feeding a machine that regurgitates them into slop for profit is hardly subtle. It's a game that celebrates creativity and collaboration and refuses to budge on the celebration of humanity's creative spirit. It's a little cheesy with it, and it doesn't always land narratively, but its heart is very much in the right place. And what helps is that on a gameplay level, this is easily one of the most creative games of the year. You'll be constantly hopping between different sci-fi and fantasy settings, 1 minute riding a motorbike through a cyberpunk city, and the next guiding dragons through a sky world. Sometimes you'll be diverted off to side stories about rainbow farting pigs or surviving a deadly game show. And without spoiling it, the final chapter is a brazenly confident technical marvel, and I still have no idea how they pulled it off. This is also what makes Split Fiction so hard to talk about. It's a game that flits between big, bold moments that could sustain a single game by themselves, but they're all crammed in here. But the joy is seeing all this unfold in front of you, so telling you about any of it feels like I'm ruining the experience. It is a collection of delightful surprises that constantly defy your expectations. Me and my co-op partner had a ton of fun with this one, so if you're looking to dive into something with a second person for 8 chapters of whimsy, you need to play Split Fiction. And now I guess we really do need to play It Takes Two, huh? One thing I have found exceptionally odd about Game of the Year discussions this year is the absolute fervour around Clair Obscur Expedition 33. It's a game that's been hailed as this generationally important work that fundamentally redefines its genre, and no other game can come close to it. And I honestly don't get where so much of this hype is coming from. Now, I say all this while simultaneously saying that my personal game of the year is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Does this make me part of the problem? Maybe, but as much as I love this game, my reasons for it feel kind of at odds with the way it's been broadly spoken about, and I think this is where my disconnect with the weird overblown hype comes from. There's been a lot of chatter about how this has revitalised JRPGs, especially the turn-based kind, and shown up the Japanese on how to get away from all those anime tropes. Meanwhile, I believe these people are all laughably wrong, as I found it to be just a profound love letter to the genre, one built on everything that came before, and exists purely because of developer Sandfall's enduring enthusiasm for all of the tropes that people seem to think this subverts. Surprise, it doesn't subvert anything, it just comes with a unique je ne sais quoi. And by that, I mean it's not particularly original, it's just very French. What Sandfall have created here is, honestly, a compilation of great things cribbed from other games, recognising what made those things great, and packaged it in a striped shirt and a beret. This is all complimentary, by the way. The most obvious place you can see the French influence is in the artwork, drawing from the Art Nouveau styles of the Belle Epoque era of French history, then warping it into strange shapes. There were so many areas where I'd be wowed by some alien bit of scenery, from a floating rock formation to an undersea dungeon which made me feel like I was back in Folklore on the PS3. That again is a compliment, just so we're clear. The fact that the game starts in a strange version of Paris with a wonky Eiffel Tower is a pretty strong indicator of the cultural touchstones we're working with. It's also backed by a soundtrack by first-timer Lorien Testard, whose melancholic take on classic French folk music gave the game a unique identity. The battle system is an amalgamation of an assortment of JRPG classics. It's a game that knows about Super Mario RPG's timed hits, and it adds its own simplistic spin on the addition system of The Legend of Dragoon. This introduction of real-time elements was divisive for some, and even I admit to some frustrations with the occasionally weird timings, but the dodge and parry did add so much strategy to battles that I cannot think of any reason to remove them. But what makes all this truly impressive is how much personality each character's moveset evokes, and how much synergy their abilities provide not just to the character themselves, but to the whole party. The buff and debuff systems are clearly trying to give Atlas a run for their money, and each character having a unique meter system adds a lot of extra strategy I didn't know was needed. Although Verso's meter really is just the DMC5 style meter, right down to using practically the same font. I see you. Of course, all this is wrapped in a superb story. I was interested in the game purely on its unique premise of a slowly dying civilization caused by a magical entity committing age-based genocide, and it followed through on all of it in ways that I did not expect. The cast carry this story about perseverance and the power of teamwork, which ultimately turns into a reflection on grief and loss. Every single performance is spot on, from Ben Starr's complicated Verso, who only occasionally made me think of Clive Rosfield.
What the hell is cosplay?
To Andy Serkis's commanding presence as a major villain. And Jennifer English winning every award for her performance of Mael is the correct choice. I know Act 3 is divisive, but it's exactly the sort of metatextual nonsense I love getting my teeth into, and that conclusion and its final choice with no clear right choice is masterful. The fact that it still inspires passionate debates among fans is a clear indication of how effective it is. Plus, this is a game that has some of my new favourite characters, like Esquier, the cuddly balloon man full of wine, and my beloved Lune. Gotta love a woman who can inexplicably levitate. Look, everyone has banged on about how great Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is by this point. You've heard it all before, and I'm not exactly contributing anything new here, but I will say that while others praise it for being revolutionary and a shot in the arm for JRPGs as a whole, I see it as a cultural exchange, built by devs outside Japan who grew up with JRPGs and wanted to make their own. It's thematically appropriate for a game that repeatedly emphasises the strength of collective effort built on the backs of your predecessors to be so clearly inspired by the work of the JRPG greats who came before. In previous years, I have awarded some esoteric picks like Forza Horizon 5 and Tunic my Game of the Year, and I very much stand by those choices. But this year, I'm sorry, but I am following the crowd. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is my Game of the Year for 2025. And with that, we place our final brushstrokes on the canvas of 2025 and load up a fresh easel for 2026. If you're watching this on the day of release, it is New Year's Eve, so however you choose to ring in midnight tonight, I hope you have a great one, and I'll see you in 2026 with hopefully a more consistent video release schedule. Maybe. We'll see. Anyway, bye! Happy New Year!